Hey everybody. Today we are going to be covering Sanity.io, a headless content management system, and how it fits into the Pareto web companion. We're going to be doing a couple of things. We're going to be working with the data from the API itself. So how do we integrate that into React? How do we render that data? We're also going to update and add a new field to our content management system, and we're going to redeploy our API, and we're going to walk through that entire process. So I've showed this to you in a previous video, but Sanity, you can see it here. So essentially it's a content management system that you can define using JavaScript objects. So you can define the schema based on what attributes you want an object to have, right? So for example, in the React web schema, an object will have a title, it'll have a type, an overview, a URL, etc., right? So let's say that we want to add something here, right? Like let's say we want to add we actually have an overview right here, right? So let's say we did want to update something. So let's go take a look at what that web schema looks like here. So as you can see, the fields is an array of objects, and we have a title, we have a type, we have an overview, a URL, etc., right? And that matches up with what we have here. Now, let's say that we wanted to update a field, right? In this case, we really don't, but let's say that we did. We would go ahead and add a new one of these fields, and in the command line, we would use the Sanity npm module to configure the deployment directly from the command line. So in this case, I actually don't have the Sanity npm module installed. This is a newer computer. So why don't we go check the instructions for installing this tool? And so what we want is we actually want the Sanity CLI right here, Sanity CLI. So we want to do npm install at Sanity CLI. And we want to install it globally, right? npm i-g at Sanity CLI. But so for right now, what do we want to do? We want to display these items in our web application. Well, we've already done that to a certain extent. So here in the technical training, we've already displayed each of these items here, right? We're already pulling the data from there. However, what if we want to also render the overview? What if we want to have a description for each of those objects, right? That's going to require us to use an npm package called Sanity Block Content, which is going to take this block content here, and it's going to convert it into HTML code that React can read. And we actually use this. Here in our experience system. So for example, let's take a look at the SEO audit SSR implementation. So here in this overview, we have this block content, and to render it, we're going to want to use that Sanity Block Content module, which I believe we already have installed. Okay, so for the first step, let's go ahead and create another modal that will be able to display the information from our experience system, because right now we have a modal that will pull the information for the educational content on our platform. So how would we go about doing that? Well, we have our content modal right here, right, in our components folder, but we have slightly different fields here to display than we do in the experience. So if we look at the web schema, right, if we look at this here and we compare it to if we compare it to one of the experience system schemas, we have a title, a type, overview, URL, priority, website. Oh, you know, actually, they're pretty much the same now that I think about it. So how could we reuse this component then so that it works for all of these, for both of these different sets of data? So let's go ahead and try to import this then into the dashboard. So right now we have our component mounting in the dashboard, which pulls the information for the training and the product data here, right? And we have a function here to update the content for these particular educational attributes. So what we want to do is we want to be able to display the experience items inside of the modal. So here we have an onClick function that updates the content based on topic.type. And what that does is it will display all of the items for a particular type of content. So it'll display all of the items for React Web. However, that's not exactly what we want here. Here, what we want to do when we click on this is we want to see all of the information for just the Node School module. So while the data structure of these different documents might be identical, the way that we want to display the data is going to be different. So what we're going to want to do ultimately is we're going to want to create a different type of modal. We're going to want to create a modal to display the experience system. So let's go ahead and call it the experience modal. And what we could do is we could take a good chunk of this code and reuse it. So we're going to want to call this the experience modal. And the props that we're getting passed in the title, right? Obviously that we want to have, and we want to get passed in the block content. So really that's the most important thing. We want to have the blocked content that is associated with the description of the milestone, right? So here, if we look at, Node School Module 1, so we want to go back to apprenticeship. So Node School Module 1. So here, right, we have these two paragraphs. Node School provides open source digital workshops. For this achievement, please complete the workshop called Java Scripting for 250 experience points. So we want to be able to display the overview. We want to be able to display the amount. And the priority we're not going to display here, but we're going to use that to order our items. So we're not going to need to map over any lists. What we need to do is we need to display the overview. So here we could do is we could have props.overview. And we're going to have another button here to mark as complete. So the whole point of the experience system is that you're working through items to earn experience along your journey. And so we need to have some sort of mechanism for you to say, hey, I've done this. I want the experience points for it. So mark, we're going to have a button here, which is currently doesn't have any function associated with it, but we're just going to call it mark complete. Okay, so now let's go back to our dashboard here. Let's go back here. So first, let's go ahead in the render experience list here. First thing is let's go ahead and console log the topics that we're receiving here so that we can get a better look at the data that we're going to be working with. So let's go into training camp. And here on line 81, so we have an amount, right? We have an overview which is an array of objects. We have the title and the priority. So it won't be too hard to work with this because this is just a number, right? The tricky part here is going to be in the overview, right? This is an object. So we're going to need to work with a special library called Sanity Block Content. So Sanity Block Content to React. Okay, so let's take a look at what they're doing over here. So we've saved this, and how they're doing it is they're importing block content and they're rendering it. Okay. Okay, let's try this out. So let's go ahead and import block content from @sanity/block content to React. All right, and now let's go ahead and let's declare but as file is never read. Let's go ahead and just try it out here. Block content blocks equals topic dot, what does it equal here? Let's topics dot overview, topic dot overview. And let's go ahead, it just has a closing tag like that. So let's see if that renders what we want. It sure does, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we're in business. So we're obviously displaying the data that we want, right? I mean, do we even really need to have it be in a modal right now? I think that for right now, maybe we can get away with not even having it in a modal. I think for right now, it probably works well enough for that, for this. So for right now, that works well enough. So why don't we also go ahead and also add the experience points listed here, right? So let's go ahead and say let header equals, I'm going to make it an interpolated string, and we're going to take topic.title, and then we're going to say exp colon topic.amount. Was that it? Yep. Okay, and then so we've created this object here with these multiple with this interpolated string, and so now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and plug that in. Ah, yes. So we just need to move that down there. Oh, there we go. So we're displaying how much experience each of them is worth. We can go ahead and actually, we can go ahead and for now, so we can actually go ahead and move this exp here to make it look a little nicer. But at any rate, we're displaying what we want here, right? And why don't we also kind of do something similar here on the topics list? Let's go ahead and also render the topic dot, I believe it's description. There we go. So now our application has a little bit more of our API data in here, right? And so here, so we have this block content, right? And What we want to do is below it, let's have a button that says mark as complete. Oh, I guess I haven't imported a button here yet. Let's check that out. Aha, we got a button. Okay. And then when that button pops up, we'll probably want to have a modal. So at any rate, we don't really need this experience modal right now, because for now, this is satisfactory for the current moment. So let's go ahead and just delete that. If we need to have a better UI at some point, we'll come back to that. But at any rate, right now, this is looking pretty decent. Let's see here. We have a couple of Webpack errors coming here. So it says a P tag cannot appear as a descendant of a P tag in P created by block type serializer. So this is, I believe, in reference to this. So why don't we... Let's see if we can make this error go away here. No, it says div p, div cannot, it says p. So 88. So div cannot appear. So this list group item essentially is a paragraph tag. Okay. We'll come back to this later. We're going to have a little debug session where we work through all these later. But for now, let's keep moving. So, right. So we have these. So why don't we also do something real quick here? So we have this data here, right? But it's not really that useful because we're just showing the names of the articles, right? Not too useful. So why don't we go ahead and actually make them into links that people can click on, so that they can, they can actually see the articles that we're talking about. So if we're going here to content modal, right now this is a div, but why don't we make this an anchor tag, and we can specify the href to be the resource URL. Why don't we see? Oh, well, it does work, but that is not a good look. Not a good look. So that's a little better, but we still need to actually have this link outside of the app, right? We want to open a new tab. We don't want to close the tab. So how do we want to do that? A tag link to another page. I guess someone's already asked this question. And then let's see here. So the most important thing when you don't know how to do anything is you have to know the right way to ask a question. So Google will tell you pretty much everything that you need to know, but you need to ask the right question. So a tag link to another page. So let's just check the first response here. A link to another website. If you make a link, okay, so they're actually not really giving us the answer here. This is a terrible website. Oh, let's check W3 schools. I'm sure they have the goods here. So what we're looking for is we are looking for relate, or actually we're looking for target. So what we really want to do is we want to use this, I believe, the underscore blank. Target equals underscore or no, it's rel no refer, right? It's one of these. Let's see. There we go. So target equals underscore blank. So that's how we open up the tab in the website in a different tab, right? So that works pretty well. And so now, well, we actually have something that's kind of functional, right? So now you can actually see all these different links. You can see the information for these separate milestones. However, we're not quite able to do anything there. We're not able to mark as complete. And the reason for that is because we haven't actually integrated our backend APIs yet. So we haven't integrated our user information. So, you know, the way that we track how, you know, what your first name, your last name, your email is, we haven't integrated that. And because we haven't integrated that, we're not able to access that user's experience tables in our MongoDB database. So the steps moving forward are going to be to integrate those APIs, to go ahead and download the requisite experience tables for that specific user, and then link this up, link up the UI so that when you click mark as complete for experience item number 1 or number 2 or number 3, that it will be able to execute the logic to mark these as complete in the experience table, and then to update the experience on the back end, and finally to refresh the front end so that the user sees, so my network request was successfully executed, that we were able to update the back end, and now the front end reflects this new reality. So that's kind of the next step. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be integrating with a serverless MongoDB API that's going to show us how we're creating a user table, as well as how we're creating our experience APIs, and that's going to be on the next video. So that should start up in a couple of seconds. Enjoy.